All right, everybody, I have an absolute treat for you today because on the Snazzy Show, I rarely bring anyone on here that truly hasn't either impacted me or I haven't seen impact others. And this lady right now, she is just absolutely fierce in doing that. She's a resilient overcomer. She's transformed pain into purpose and literally is a community builder and a speaker that can change your life. And so I want to welcome Amberley Lago to the show. Thank you so much for being here.
Oh my goodness. Thank you so much. And thank you for that amazing intro. Can you just come with me everywhere I go?
When I was thinking about how do I present you, I'm like a resilient overcomer or an overcomer resilient. I don't know. I got to put those two words together because it is outrageous what you have done in your life. And I really want to spend time just helping people understand the value of resilience and how to even build it, because this is something that I personally like pride myself on. And where we have, I guess, a little bit of a connection point is the fact that I've had a lot of surgeries, but you've had like three times more than I have, so it's crazy. And so I want to touch on that, and really, we're going to kind of like dive, quite deep into this. But we're going to talk about who you were prior to your accident and a little bit of a backstory on you for all these listeners is Amberly's had 34 surgeries and she's going to tell you exactly what happened. But let's talk about who you were prior to the surgeries and what was she like?
Yeah, you know what? I think we connected so deeply the first time we met. And I just feel like you're one of those people that is my long lost friend that we've reconnected. And I'm like, we're going to be friends for life. Because I think we have so much in common, and before we even started recording, I was like, yeah, I spent my whole life on the dance floor. And then on the gym floor. I was an athlete my whole life. Athleticism was my go-to. It was how I found joy. It was actually where I connected to God, was not in the church as much as it was like on the track field. And I decided I wanted to be a professional dancer at the time of I was young. I don't know, maybe 8, 10. And I always said, I'm going to move to California and be a professional dancer. And everybody's like, yeah, yeah, that's really cute. And I worked 4 jobs and I saved up $1,200 and I packed up my car and I drove from Texas to California with everybody, even friends and they're like, oh, you'll be back in 2 weeks. And I remember, my stepmom said, I think you're making a big mistake. That was the last thing she said to me when I was leaving. And then my mom was like, why are you taking everything? You're going to be back. And a month later, after getting to California, I was in my first music video. I was on MC Hammer's "Can't Touch This" music video.
Dang. Whoa. Mic drop that.
I was like, "I've made it. I've made
You
it."
kind of did.
I was just I was just like it was I was like and then I got a job going to Japan and I remember this is a long time ago, calling my mom from a payphone and saying, "Mom, I'm going to Japan." And I would go to Japan twice a year and dance, and I remember thinking, "I can't believe that I am getting paid to do what I love." And I always knew that I wanted to retire from dance at a young age. And it was actually an old age in my eyes as a dancer, which was 25, which is pretty crazy to think that 25 is old. So I had this idea. I want to go, I finished strong. I want to finish my career as a dancer strong while I'm doing big things and get into the next thing. And I remember thinking, well, what do I love to do? And I was like, well, I know that I could help other people get strong and rehab injuries because I had torn my meniscus and went to the gym. I was supposed to have surgery. And instead, I went to the gym and started working out and rehabbing it. And I canceled my surgery. And the gym to this day, I feel at home there. Like I can be stressed out, sad, depressed. I mean, I can just have no energy, go to the gym, put some music on, and I'm like, yes, I feel good now. I don't always feel like going in, but I think of how I'm going to feel when I leave. And so I thought, I love working with people. I had taught dance since I was 13 years old. And so I just transitioned into getting my trainer certification through NSCA, having a booming career in the fitness industry. Loved it. I taught a trainer certification preparation course. And uh, I had, gosh, I think it 6 trainers that I employed. I was on regularly contributing to Health and Shape magazine articles, writing articles for them, and on if you went into any Rite Aid or Walgreens, I was on the label of the vitamin labels, which was pretty crazy to see your picture on a vitamin label, and doing infomercials with Body by Jake, and back in the day when we had VHS and you could put a VHS cassette like, or, I don't even know what they call them now. What is it? When
The
we used to
video
watch
cassette. You could put a
VCR.
video cassette into the VHS.
Yeah, like the young kids out there are like, "Oh god, she's anxious."
Yeah, she's yeah,
But
you they're like, "What are
yeah,
you talking about? What is this lingo?" For anyone out there listening to this, I know well, most of the people my audience, they're not, young enough, or that young to not know what that is, but they need to know that they used to buy, like, 12 tapes, right?
yeah,
Like,
yeah,
and then you had to
workout
play it
videos.
yeah, and you had to order them, so by the time they got to your house, you're still more probably unfit, and so you'd have to put them into your cassette player, and you're, like, on your mat ready to go. That was
Yeah,
it.
that
The
was it.
world of fitness.
Yeah, and so that was my world, and in fact, people would see me running all over town. I love to run. That was my go-to. That was my medicine, was running, and if I had a break in between clients, I was out the door running. If I was gonna meet somebody at lunch, I'm like, "Okay, where are you? Okay, give me 15 minutes. I'm gonna run." And I ran everywhere. It just brought me so much joy. And I really kind of thought I had worked so hard, been through a lot of challenges. I had built my fitness industry at a time when I was a single mom, bought my first house as a single mom. And so I then met my husband, who we've been together almost 20 years now. But I was like, wow, I finally made it. All that hard work has paid off. And it all changed in the blink of an eye, and it was all taken away. I nearly lost my life. I lost my career, um, everything. And, after a motorcycle accident where I was T-boned by an SUV.
Yeah, that is crazy. So you're at this I think you were 34 when this happened, right?
34, and I was like at the prime of my career. And I don't know if you know who Corey Everson is, and a lot of your listeners may know Corey Everson, but she was like 6 times Miss Olympia. I don't think there's anybody that has ever had her physique since. She was the equivalent to Arnold Schwarzenegger, and she was one of my best friends, and she actually qualified me as a trainer and was like, "Yeah, Amberley was at the height of her career, and this was just the beginning of." Because this is before we were talking before we started recording. I didn't have social media at the time. I didn't have systems into place. It was all word of mouth. And I was the main breadwinner of the family. And to have that taken away, we had $2.9 million worth of medical expenses, and we had a lien on our house. And I was in a coma, and my husband couldn't even he wasn't on my bank account. We had separate bank accounts. And he couldn't even pay the bills because he couldn't access my money because I was in a coma.
Oh, shit. Okay. So backtrack. Let's backtrack for a second. Tell me like what was happening the few days before the accident? And then can you tell us like what were you doing? And then how did you decide to go on a motorcycle accident? And then what happened in the accident?
Well, I've always ridden motorcycles since I was a kid. This was my second Harley, and it was a Friday, and I was getting off work early. It was a holiday weekend. And I remember the last thing that my friend Tina, she was another trainer at the gym. Tina looks at me. I've got my motorcycle. I've already got it all revving it up, and I was putting my helmet on, and she goes, "Amberly, be careful." And I said, "Oh, I will." And that day, one little decision that you make can change the whole trajectory of your life. And I remember that day thinking, man, it's a beautiful California day. I'm going to take the long way home. So, pulling out of the parking lot, instead of going right, I took a left so I could cruise down Ventura Boulevard a little bit longer. And I remember just riding, and it's like freedom when you're on a motorcycle. You can just feel the sun on your face, the wind through your hair, and cruising along. I was at a stoplight, light turned green. I start to go, and as a when you're on a motorcycle, you learn to drive defensively. You're looking out for everything around you, and I see this guy in a parking lot at the very edge of the parking lot trying to make a left, and I think, okay, he sees me. We've made eye contact, and I'm like, oh my god, he does not see me. Apparently, I was like, and by then it was too late. He punched it out of this parking lot, and I only had time to let go of the clutch and try to jump off my motorcycle. Well, it hit me. It was like a punch, and I got thrown 30 feet. And I just remember sliding across the asphalt and thinking to myself, "Oh god, please just don't let another car hit me," because I couldn't tell what I was sliding into. I didn't even know if I was sliding into oncoming traffic. If any of you listening have ever been in LA and you're going down Ventura Boulevard, you know it's a very busy, busy street, and, came to a stop, and I only looked down at my leg once, and when I look down, it's crazy to see a limb on your actual body that is completely into pieces. My foot was dangling off, only hanging on by the skin. There was blood everywhere. I didn't know it at the time, but my femoral artery was actually severed, and you can bleed out apparently in 10 up to 10 minutes from that. And do you know one of the first things I thought? Maybe you'll understand this because of what you do and being an entrepreneur. One of the first things I thought was, "Oh, dang, man, this can't be good. I might have to train clients on crutches for a while." Like, I swear I was already thinking, like, "How am I gonna keep the business running? I might have to train them on crutches. This is gonna be harder. Like, how am I to get it pick up the weights?" Like, I was thinking these thoughts in between screaming some cuss words and then thinking, "Oh gosh, my Methodist mother would not be proud of me for," but I could not hold in the screams and the cuss words. I had never experienced any pain like this, and I've had my first child, I had her with absolutely not even a Tylenol, like completely all natural, no drugs. And the paramedics got there quickly, thank goodness. A guy came over and he made a tourniquet around my leg. I was rushed to the hospital, and we got there. The ER was chaotic. It was filled with cops. My husband's a former cop. He's retired now. He was a lieutenant commander. It was the first time I'd ever seen him cry, and he was hysterical. I didn't see what he was seeing. Later, he told me that he goes, "Well, you didn't see what I was seeing." He goes, "The doctor was reaching in, pulling your femoral artery out, and it would snap back into your leg, and he was pulling it out, trying to clamp it." And I was like, "Oh," because I was taped to the gurney. And I yelled over at across the room. I said, "Honey, I need you to get over here and be strong for me." Because in that moment, I thought, I think I might be dying, and I need to know that he's gonna hold it together for our 2 kids. That's the last thing I remember before I woke up out of a coma, and I guess when I was in a coma, they wanted to amputate my leg, and my husband said, "Absolutely not. I want her to wake up with both of her legs." So when I woke up, they said, "Hey, I'm so sorry. That your leg's like a war wound. There is nothing we can do for it. We need to amputate it. You've got a 1% chance of saving it." And I said, What?" I was like, "What?" And my thought was, "I need my leg. Like, I need to run. That's my medicine. I need to work. I need to keep a roof over my," all I was thinking was, "Okay, 1%. So there's a chance. We need to find a doctor who's willing to take that chance." And my gosh, it took 34 surgeries and months in the hospital and thousands of hours of excruciating physical pain, and that was just the beginning. That was I really thought the worst was over because they saved my leg, and, being an athlete my whole life, I'm like, "Okay, this sucked, but I made it through all these surgeries. Now I'm gonna heal, I'm gonna get back to training," and they said, it's gonna take up to 2 years for you to walk again." I'm like, "Well, dang, 4.5 months? I'm already upright on crutches." I was in excruciating pain. My leg was a different color than the other one, but I was like, "Well, this is just part of it." I go into the doctor thinking he's gonna be proud of me for standing upright, and he takes one look at me and says, "You've got something very serious." And I kinda thought, "Yeah, I got hit by an SUV. Yeah, it was pretty serious, but here I am. Look, I'm on crutches." And he goes, "No, are you the kind of girl that likes to push through pain?" And I was like, "Man, he can tell. He can tell I got a PhD and suck it up. Yeah, I am." And he goes, "You need to stop. You need to stop right now. You've got something very serious. You've got complex regional pain syndrome. Your life is never going to be the same. You need to go get back in your wheelchair. You're going to be permanently disabled." And so I said, "Okay, well, how long do I need to get my wheelchair?" That's all I heard. I was just like, "Okay, give me a deadline. I'll stay there. I'll meet that deadline and I'll be up. I'll beat that deadline." He goes, "No, you don't understand." He goes, it's permanent. You're not going to walk again." I felt like I'd been kicked in the gut. I thought, this cannot be the life for me. Now, look, nothing against wheelchairs. My little brother has been in a wheelchair his whole life, but that's not the life that I imagined for me. And through a lot of grit and by the grace of God, I not only walk now, I go to the gym, I do push through pain, but I've also learned when to give myself the gift of grace and rest and recover. And I've had to learn to listen to my body because as an athlete and as a professional dancer, I was taught to ignore pain and suck it up and in Texas, cowgirl up and sayings like, "Hide your crazy and be a lady." And I was like, I had to learn a lot of different tools on how to be resilient, how to be mentally tough in a different way than how I grew up. And so, I'm just passionate about sharing these tools that I've learned in a really hard way so others don't ever have to suffer the way that I did because this took me down a dark path where I didn't wanna live anymore.
Yeah, I bet. So he's telling you you've got creps, right? Like and I've told you I've known some people that have experienced that, and I myself have had a lot of surgeries, and that's always one of the biggest things that you can be told because of all of the nerve damage, right? And so that's really for anyone out there that doesn't know what that is, it's basically like really, really like a lot of nerve damage to the point where your brain can't necessarily send the signals to where it needs to go. And
Yeah, yeah. I
so
always like to say it's kinda like a computer that needs to be rebooted. It doesn't then it's not working properly, so it's always a constant loop of just pain, and it's overly sensitive.
yes, yes, exactly. So, and obviously, if you allow it, it can actually get worse, and rather than better. And so, for you, when you were told that, you've at this point had you had 34 surgeries when he told you that?
Yeah, so I had well, actually, no, I hadn't had, I think after that point, I had an ankle surgery. I actually fell down the stairs on my crutches and broke my wrist, and so I had a broken leg and a broken wrist, and I remember, oh god, I was a mess. My husband dropped me off at the hospital because I had to have couldn't just have a cast on it. Nope, I gotta, go big or go home. I needed surgery on my wrist, and so he drops me off at the hospital, and I'm hobbling in, and I have on a temporary cast that goes all the way up to my shoulder, and I'm hobbling in, and this guy looks at me and he goes, "Oh man, what happened to you?" And I said, "Oh, a motorcycle accident." He goes, "Yeah, I rode a motorcycle once and broke my pinky, and that was it for me." And I was like, I wish I could have just broken my pinky, but this is a little bit worse. But yeah, they would do blocks on me. So any surgery I would have, they would do a nerve block up to like 5 days. So it wouldn't like flare up the CRPS. And we were talking before, this we started recording, and 'Cause I was telling you I want to get bigger guns like you. I need to have some biceps like your gorgeous biceps. We were talking about working out, and I said, I had a setback because I had a stem cell treatment that went really wrong, and I woke up out of surgery, and the CRPS was flared up so bad, I was back in a wheelchair. I couldn't even walk, and this is less than a year ago, and I told the doctors they hadn't ever worked on anybody with CRPS, and I told the doctors, I said, when you're working with somebody with CRPS, you might wanna think about doing a block on them." And they're like, "Oh, good idea." And I'm like, "Yeah, thanks, I'm back in a wheelchair. Thanks, I'm glad I could be your guinea pig."
Yeah. Or train them. You're still teaching, huh? You're still
Yeah.
teaching when you shouldn't be. Well, and it's crazy that you've done that, and I wanna, help people understand how you came out of this because from my understanding, even, like, you put up a post, and guys, you need to be following Amberley when you whenever you can, like, get on Instagram and, like, just pause this and go and follow her because it's ridiculous. We put up this post, and I read this post a couple of times, and it was a before and after of you, and it talked a bit about, you before, how you were, and it just so happens to be a wine glass in the photo. I don't know if people saw the wine glass. It was the first thing I saw. I was like, this is going to be something about probably what she turned to throughout the struggle.
Mhm.
And so
Mhm.
I would love to know a little bit more about, because obviously it's not like you were positive throughout the whole journey, because that's impossible. Um,
Yeah, and that's something I really want to make sure that people understand is, like, when I was going through hell, I wasn't on social media. I For 6 years, I was in and out of surgery, and I wasn't posting. I didn't even have social media. I mean, I only had social media, like, 6 years ago, and I wrote my first book. My publisher was like, "Well, we don't market or brand for you, so you got it." And I was like, "Oh gosh, I guess I have to figure out social media." And I think sometimes social media makes it seem like, "Oh, everything's just wonderful." And I like to keep it real and be like, "You know what? No, it's still not always easy. It's still, even health-wise, as an entrepreneur, as a mom, as you know, we just lost my therapy dog of 14 years, just passed away this weekend. Life is beautiful, but life is also, it can be hard. And this disease, CRPS, took me down. I have a history of addiction in my family, and my whole life I was like, "Oh, that's not me. I am making something of myself." And that's one of the reasons I moved from Texas when I was 18. I was like, "I'm getting out of here. I'm headed to California, and I'm gonna be somebody." You know what I mean? I was just like, "I am not doing this." And lo and behold, addiction does not discriminate. It doesn't matter who you are, how old you are, what race you are, where you're from. Addiction can come after you with a vengeance. And when I was trying all these different treatments, I mean, spinal stimulator, spinal block, spinal radio frequency, Eastern, Western medicine, I was on 73 homeopathic pills and 11 prescription medications at one point, and nothing was working. And then lo and behold, I discovered wine. And I was like, well, dang, this kind of numbs out the pain. And it became where one glass wasn't helping, then I was two, then it was three, then it was a bottle. Then I was just like, you know what, this isn't fast enough. There's a lot of sugar in it. Let me just go straight for the vodka. And I was like, holy crap. I thought this, how did a good girl like me end up like this? I'm an alcoholic. I've got a problem. I went from being an elite athlete to living almost like a double life. On the inside, I felt like I was dying, and on the outside, I was just trying to hold it all together, and I would promise myself that I wasn't gonna drink that day, and by 2 o'clock, I would get through some work, I would get my daughter, pick her up from school, get her home, and I was like, it was just like, "I gotta have relief. Please, 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 I need relief." It was just like I wanted to scream mercy and just let me knock a glass back, just to get out of pain. And I remember telling my husband, "I think I have a problem." He goes, "Oh, no, 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 you don't have a problem. Anybody who was dealing with what you're dealing with would be drinking." but I knew deep inside. And I think that it's so important for us to really get radically honest with ourselves because we heal what we reveal. And man, it might kick your ass, but it will set you free. And um, I knew I desperately wanted help because it was either I was going to die. I had survived 34 surgeries only to be drinking myself to death, or I was going to get help. And so I think there's a gift in desperation. And it took every ounce of courage for me to ask for help. And I asked a friend for help, and she's like, "Yes, yes, yes, I'll take you to a meeting." I knew she was sober, and I never heard from her. A week went by, and I was like, "No, I'm really I'm gonna die." And I wanted to die. I like I wanted to die, but I was so afraid of death, if that makes sense. And I just got on my knees and I prayed. And then I got on Google and I researched 12 steps meetings. And I went to a meeting when my husband would be at work and my daughters would be in school. And I went from sneaking my drinking to sneaking going to recovery meetings. And by the grace of God, I got sober in 2016. In fact, I still go to meetings almost every day. I led and spoke at a meeting this morning. I asked how I can be of service. I could not stay sober without community. I couldn't get through my entrepreneurship without community. I was trying to grit it out, and what I've learned is grit without connection is just resistance. It's hitting roadblocks, or for me, it was hitting rock bottom. But grit with connection, that's where you truly find resilience. So if there's one thing that you can take away from our time together, like if you're listening and you're listening to this, let it be this, that you don't have to do it alone. Like, I tried doing everything alone. I thought I had to do everything alone, that nobody would understand what I was going through. And when you can accept where you are, who you are on your journey, it allows you to take action steps with grit, and it allows you to connect with a community on a deeper level.
Mm. That is kind of wild that you went from all of that, right? Isn't it crazy that sometimes saving us from ourselves is actually harder than saving us from anything else?
Yep.
And I think that it's just crazy to think that you have come so damn far. And you talk about grit and grace, and you talk about these things, which is amazing because you wrote a book, a self-help book, right? And the 2 points that I got out of that book was really embracing like how what adversity is and how you can actually build the resilience through it, right? And just following your journey. And obviously, yes, the highlights of the good, but also just the mental and struggles that you were able to then convert those into who you are today. And I think what I loved about what you wrote was truly like the power of the mindset and the purpose, because some people, I think they forget that they still have a purpose to fulfill, right? But it's almost like through pain, and I truly believe that pain changes people. It's mostly for the bad, mostly for the worse, because at the end of the day, pain is something that we can't really fully understand, how to turn it, right? How to transform it into something positive, because it just hurts so much, regardless of what pain you're in, whether it's physical, emotional, spiritual, mental. The pain is really something that I think so many people try to run away from, but they can't. And you're never going to run away from it. You have to just face it and you have to go through it. And you've built so much resilience throughout it. But how do you keep up with this mindset? Like how do you hold on to it every day?
Oh, well, you know what? People think I'm positive all the time, and I'm not. I mean, I have trained my mind to flip the switch or script, and from what I'm telling myself, I've learned to talk to myself instead of listen to myself, because if I listen to myself, man, I've got a mean inner critic that will tell me awful things about myself. And I was sharing with you that I finally got a new executive assistant who is amazing, and she even mentioned, she goes, "Why did you just devalue yourself?" And I'm like, "Oh, you're right. I'm switching that right now." So as a kid, I grew up with a lot of negativity, a lot of people doubting me, and I thought, I'm not gonna be like that. I'm gonna be positive, and it's crazy. One of my clients actually just sent me something. I think it's like the Gallup test. Do you know what that is? It's some test that you take, and it tells you your personality traits of, like, what kind of person you are, and it's interesting. I just took it last night, and mine was positivity, belief, activator, communication, and developer. So it basically is so much about my mindset and pouring in. I like to pour into people and show them their potential and help them get there, and I'm an action taker. But, I think that it starts with mindset. I would not be able to do the things that I do without a positive mindset, you know? I'm the kind of person that my whole life people have said, "Oh, you'll never be able to do that." I'm like, "Oh, yeah, watch me." It was like motivation to me. When somebody would tell me I can't, I'm like, "Oh, well, thanks for the motivation." And it's been that way my whole life, you know? You're the runt. I was the runt in school, like, I was the shortest, the skinniest, like, "You're not gonna make the track team." Oh, I set a record in Texas for running the fastest mile. Moving to California, "You'll be back. You think you're gonna make it as a professional dancer?" "Well, yeah, I sure did. Yeah, you can see me on TV." And so it just motivates me. I think people can tell you things, but it's so important what we tell ourselves. And it's so important, actually, the people that are telling you, doubting you, to find new people, find a new circle, find people who can pour belief in you. Because look, there was a time after I got out of the hospital, I had lost all confidence. I even thought, is my husband going to love me anymore? I'm scarred from the hip down, my legs deformed. I had lost 20 pounds of muscle. So imagine me, you've seen me, we've been together in person, 20 pounds lighter than that. I looked like I had been through a war. And I think that, a lot of times your self confidence can be knocked right out of you, and it's up to us to work on our mindset so we can get through hard times and strengthen our resilience before we need it.
Yeah, definitely. And so I want to give people some steps that they can take. Maybe steps you've utilized or given out to other people. But let's keep these steps very simple and applicable to someone that maybe feels like they're a little bit on the downward spiral, right? The self
Oh,
talk is negative. They don't feel like there is a way out, right? Like let's talk to, I guess, the you when you were down after the hit, right? What would you say to someone that has been knocked down, that is knocked down, feeling negative, and what would be the three things that you could give them to help them?
well, I'd like to give them one word that I still use every single day, and it's a checklist for me. And I go down this checklist to make sure, because if I'm feeling sad, if I'm feeling low energy, if I'm in fear, anxious, whatever it may be, I'm like, okay, what's missing off this checklist? And it's something that I use every single day because I'm still living with pain every single day. It's called PACER. It stands for and because I would always like try to grit it out. Then I'm like, how about I take things in stride, like pace myself and think of it in a good way and not like a negative way, because it's okay to pace yourself to get through things. So PACER stands for perspective, acceptance, community, endurance, and rest. And so the easiest and quickest way to shift your perspective if you're feeling down is with gratitude. Gratitude is alchemy. I can't tell you how many doctors tried to put me on antidepressants, and nothing wrong with that. But my body rejected them. And so I thought, if I can just shift my perspective with gratitude, it really puts you in a place where you're focusing on what you can do instead of what you can't do, and what you do have instead of what you don't have. So I encourage you to practice gratitude. And I say practice because I know sometimes it's hard when you're going through an authentic catastrophe, but there's always something to be grateful for. And also, I have a gratitude a group of ladies, we have a gratitude practice together. Have a friend or a group of people, friends that you can do a practice together to keep each other accountable. The next part of PACER is acceptance. Um, accept where you are. I encourage you today to ask yourself this question: how's that working for you? Is it helping you or hurting you? There's something in your life that maybe you're putting blinders on, that maybe you don't want to accept, but you know you need to accept it. You need to have some awareness around it so you could start to take some action steps. It doesn't mean you're admitting defeat, it means it's putting you in the driver's seat of your life so you can make your life the best that it can be, and so it can connect you to the right community. And that's the next part of PACER. And I think community and connection are probably the most important part. And so somebody said, "Oh, well, you're lucky you had community." I'm like, "No, your hard work puts you where your blessings can find you." Like, how can you add value everywhere you go? I was in the hospital bed in between surgeries, and I was still reaching out to my community. I was reaching out to the trainers who worked for me. I was reaching out to my clients, setting them up with programs and nutrition programs and workouts. And I was even helping the nurses with workout programs while I'm in the hospital. It's important to be of service to others instead of trying to use your strengths to suck it up to achieve success. What if you could use your strengths to be of service to others in their success? Because that is where fulfillment is. And that is how you're going to be able to have the endurance, which is the next part of PACER. And endurance is where your passion and your perseverance come into play. It's where you go, ask yourself the right question. Stop asking how or what and ask why. Why'd you get started? Why are you doing the thing that you are going to do? I got up out of bed and I learned to walk again because I was going to be an example of resilience for my daughters. I started speaking on stages again because I was determined to give hope and inspiration to others. I wrote my book when I didn't even own a computer, and that took a lot of endurance. I hand wrote 90% of the book and then went out and bought my first laptop. And I did that because I knew it would turn my pain to purpose. And then the very last part of PACER is the hardest thing for me. And I'm curious if this is hard for you too, is rest. Because to me, I grew up where resting meant quitting. You know, I had coaches that would yell at me, "Rest, you're resting, then that means you're quitting. Get up and go." They didn't care if we were throwing up on the track. She would just say, "Off the track to throw up and keep running." My dance instructor, I remember saying, "But Miss Jackie, my toes are bleeding. The show must go on." So I learned to tune out any whispers from my body that were saying, "Hey, there's a little problem here, little problem," until my body would scream at me, and or even worse, I ended up in ICU again because I was ignoring passing a kidney stone. And I was giving a motivational speech at a conference while I was passing a kidney stone, and I just, mistook health scares for heroic acts with and told myself it was grit and said, "When you got grit, there is no quit." But guess what? I have made business a part of my business strategy. I mean, I take my sleep very seriously now. I have an alarm that goes off on my phone that reminds me bedtime's approaching. I wear two different things that's charging right now, but I wear a ring and a little watch that measure my REM sleep, deep sleep, tell me if, um, my HRV. It's very important to when you can listen to your body, learn to rest and recover. That's how you're going to be truly resilient. So the next time, if you're struggling, if you're sad, or if you're on a downward spiral, reach out to somebody and go see how they're doing. Get out of yourself and go help somebody. And use the PACER methodology. I use it every day, especially when I'm like, why do I feel like crap? And it's like, "Oh, well, I haven't reached out to anybody," or, "Oh, it's because I've worked 18 hours straight and I forgot to eat, like, I need to rest." Like, there's always something that I've left off that can shift my mindset, help me, mentally, physically, or spiritually. So I really hope that helps your
I love
listeners.
that. I love that. I love I've never heard that before, so I think that they're gonna definitely, utilize the pacer. I love that, and that's awesome. And the other thing that I think what would be beneficial is for people to look into maybe even getting your book and actually listening to your book, or reading your book, which is the True Grit and Grace, or they can even get access to getting your new book, which is Joy Through the Journey. And you were just telling me just before this that that's coming out in February or March next year.
It's coming
And
out in February, and it is already like the publisher called and said, "We need you to go ahead and do a post. There, Barnes and Noble has a sale on the book. Tell people." And I'm like, "Really? Go ahead and tell people it's." And so I had a lot of people buy it, and they were texting me going, "I bought your book, but it's not coming out till February 11th." And I'm like, "Yeah, but I'm gonna have great ass. Like I'm given a companion playbook and a free webinar and a call to your team with Q&A if you order, more than one book. And this book is all about shifting your mindset, embracing the present moment, and cultivating resilience to get through life's ups and downs. And it shows you how you can, I always say, you can be a joy sparker, and encourages you to go out there and do some joy spotting. Find the joy. It's there. It comes from deep within you, and it also comes from the support around you. And so, yeah, if you go to amberleylago.com/book, you can find the info and all the details for it. Or if you go to Amberley Lago Motivation on Instagram, you can see the behind the scenes shenanigans and all the links to upcoming events and new book and stuff like that. So yeah, thanks
love
for
it.
asking.
And, guys, I'm gonna drop the links as well in all of the show notes here. And even when I express this on Instagram, when I post about this on Instagram, I want everybody to go and follow you. And I also want people to understand that, not just through the books, but you also do a lot of events. One event that I'm also coming to as well,
I'm
because
so
after
excited.
Oh, yeah. I was like, "This is like a no-brainer." And it honestly for I invited one of my clients who lives in Hong Kong. I was like, "Listen, you need to fly over here." And she's
Are
like,
you serious?
yeah, I told her to come over. She's like, "Let me think about it." And I was like, "Oh yeah, no, we're not going to think about it. We're doing it. We're an action-based team here." So I'm hoping she's going to come and I think she will. I hope she's listening to this. She knows exactly who she is. So I've told her that she's got to
Better
come
come.
along. And only because, I think that what I love about your event is that it's different. And I don't know if other people say that, but I'm saying that because when I looked at, okay, what is this event going to do for the masses? How is that going to impact people? You've got a great lineup of speakers. You really care about what the audience wants, what value you can bring to the audience truly, right? So there are a lot of people that say they do, but you are a deliverer of your word. And I think that many people don't understand and probably will not fully grasp that. So I'm going to really reiterate that. So it's called Unstoppable. And I want everybody to consider going there and coming to this event. One, so they can see you live in action. And if they want to meet me there, they can meet me there. So, I think it's really important to drop that because I think it's going to be an incredible event. And based on everything you've done in the past, you've always delivered really great content as well as value and information. And I mean, look at this has like been 45 minutes of just straight help for someone. Um, and that feeling, guys, when you're listening to this, you need to go and listen to that feeling, take action after you listen to this because it's going to give you a good, positive, feeling of hope. And that's essentially what all of these stories, whether it's my story, your story, it doesn't matter whose story, it gives you that feeling of hope. And now hope is, it's kind of nothing without the next action, taking that next action, whether it is, pressing the follow button, pressing the subscribe button, listening to, one of your podcasts because you have such a great show.
You were a guest. Everybody, I can't tell you how many people reached out and told me they loved your interview.
Great. Well, everyone should go and listen to that as well. So I did get a positive feedback on that as well, which was really, really cool because there was things that I said on your show I've never said before.
Oh, wow.
And so I was like, but you know what? The reason why is because I felt like I could.
Yeah.
That's it. That's it, right? We always feel like we can do what we feel safe to do, what we feel like this is it, this is that moment. And so I said things on that show that honestly made a lot of people cry. when they said to me, like, I cried, I was like, well, I've never said it before. So of course you probably cried. But you know what? I'll tell you what, one other thing. When I said what I said on your show, my mom listened to part of it, right? My mom listened to part of it and she called me crying. And I was like,
Oh,
Mom, like, you okay? She goes, I had no idea. Like, that's a,
oh,
so like, one, you created a connection in me and my mom after that show.
oh my goodness, that makes me wanna cry.
Yeah. So my mom only knew about like one time and I was telling her about the three times. And I was like, Mom, you knew? She goes, No, I didn't know. And I was like, wait, what? Like, I mean, we had to go back pretty damn far, right? So, but crazy.
Wow.
So now
Wow.
just like and like I'm not a big like say I love you at the end of every conversation. Like everyone does that and I get it. Like that's their thing. But you know, coming from a European family, we're like hard as nails. So, you know, we're not like we say it every so often, like after something. After that phone call, she said, I love you. And I was like, did you say that to me? Like, this is weird. It's such a weird feeling to hear like my mom say that to me, but in a way that's like, I'm so glad you're here, you know?
Wow, yeah, that's so healing.
Right?
That just makes me so happy to hear that. I don't know, I just feel like it was meant to be that we connected, and I just wanna say to your listeners, I know why all your clients love you so much and your listeners love you and your show so much, but I'm gonna say I was blown away. Y'all, she brought me a gift, and it was the best gift. Could you tell how, like, happy I was about this gift? I was blown away. She brought me 2 pair of the cutest jeans that I and they fit perfect. I was like, "How did you know that this was my size?" That's a pretty tough thing to do, pick out jeans for somebody, and it was like they were like, made for me. I don't know how you did it. Well, I think you had your friend help you, but I was
Yeah,
like,
I had to do some research, guys. I had to do some research.
yeah, but it was the nicest treat, and just getting to know you has been the best, and I just appreciate your support. You'll send me a text every once in a while, and it just makes my day, and that kinda goes back to what we were saying talking about earlier about reach out to somebody. You do that. Like, I love when I hear from you. Like, when I lost my dog recently, you're like, "How are you doing? I'm sorry to hear about your dog," and it's like, "Thank you." That meant a lot.
Yeah. Well, and so guys, take lessons from this. Like, you know, when you have the power of connection, the power of community, anyone in your life, even if it's one or two people, like people are in your life for a reason. You know, I have like I'll sometimes reach out to some of my clients and just be like, "Hey, how's this week been?" Like, you know, training aside, nutrition aside, everything aside, like where are you at emotionally? Right? And like sometimes we need that. We just need that like little bit of extra help, little bit of extra, you know, accountability. So use that and, you know, social media is great cuz what you said before about like see who you're hanging out with, right? The great thing about social media is you can choose who you want to hang out with. So
Mhm.
if someone's like, I want Amberly to be in my circle, well, you know what? You can hang out with her by going to all of her pages and her profiles and everything, every platform she uses and hang out with her. Like that's you get to choose what comes into your, you know, your input matters. So I only follow people that I truly feel like will add value to me. I'm not one of those follow everyone people. And I only listen if I'm going to read someone's book or if I'm going to listen to their podcast. I only will listen to people that I feel like their input is going to make me a better person. Otherwise, I'm not going to listen to like anything negative or anything that's like contradicting or anything like that. So you guys get the opportunity to do this. So while you have an ample opportunity of listening to millions, if not more, people out there that have podcasts and things like that, just stay away from the shit. Like it's just so
Yeah,
simple. Stay away from it and combine all of the good that's out there. You can kind of read it, right? I tell people to kind of like turn up their bullshit radar and go, who is out there that's really like quite good, that's genuine, that has integrity, which grit is in integrity. And, you know, and actually like listen to them, you know, listen to the messages and then apply them to your life. So there's so many things. One, the pacer I think is awesome that everyone should be applying to their day to day today. So I want to thank you so much for everything, for what you have to say, for all of your time today. And I'm going to drop everything in the show notes. So please, guys, please go and follow. Please go and like this, share this, especially if someone you know is struggling. That maybe this message would actually help shift them. But yeah, thank you so much, Amberly. Thanks for being here.
Oh, thank you so much. Thank you.
All right, guys, we'll see you in the next one.